What happens when borders tighten? Who bears the brunt when policies shift gears? According to the Department of Homeland Security, approximately 40,000 Chinese nationals without legal status face deportation orders as the United States intensifies efforts to strengthen border security and reform its immigration system. This campaign not only enforces immigration laws, but also creates opportunities to build a more transparent, fair, and efficient immigration system, delivering long-term benefits to American society. Subscribe to the channel for the latest updates. The deportation campaign targeting undocumented Chinese migrants gained real momentum in January 2025, right after the new administration took office. In the first 100 days of the president's second term, Immigration and Customs Enforcement conducted over 32,890 arrests nationwide, with a significant share involving Chinese nationals who held final deportation orders or had ties to criminal networks. That spike follows a staggering tenfold rise in Chinese attempts to enter through the southern border in 2023, compared with the previous year, signaling a scramble by many to beat stricter controls. The administration frames this wave of removals as a decisive move to restore order and bolster national security. By slashing illegal crossings by 95% in just months at the southern boundary, authorities claim to have pressed the brakes on a once mushrooming crisis. In parallel with arrests, the Department of Homeland Security unveiled a self-deportation app for quick exits and potential legal returns. Migrants without formal status now have a digital lifeline to leave in an organized manner, complete with instructions in Mandarin, English, and other languages. This touch of modern convenience reduces jail overcrowding and signals a balancing act between firm law enforcement and humanitarian goodwill. Even skeptics admit that offering clear pathways out with a promise to reconsider legal admission down the road feels like a fresh twist on old deportation drives. The administration hammers the message home: play by the rules or pack your bags in style. Diplomacy also plays its part. Since June 2024, 5 major deportation flights have shuttled hundreds of Chinese nationals back home, thanks to an unprecedented cooperation pact with Beijing. That accord led to a 62% plunge in Chinese migrants reaching US soil illegally during the second half of last year. It seems two heads of state can team up, and tariffs can talk when it comes to controlling by coupling sanctions threats with seat-sale diplomacy. Washington convinced Beijing to make the skies open for these removal missions. The result? Planes taking off full of undocumented travelers and landing in airports thousands of miles east of the Pacific coast. Meanwhile, Congress pitched in with $500 million extra to enlarge detention capacity and beef up border tech. A proposed bill by a senior senator touted a whopping $175 billion for border fences, drones, data analytics, and 20,000 new ICE officers. With detention beds swelling from 41 to over 47,000, critics argue that America is building jails faster than roads. Yet backers counter that each new facility equals more jobs for construction crews, cafeteria workers, and uniform makers. Local economies in border states enjoy the boost, even if the neighbors grumble about equipment noise and the occasional midnight transport convoy. On the ground, ICE teams have joined forces with federal agencies like the FBI, DEA, and IRS to root out identity fraud rings and smugglers. In 1 month alone, over 500 Chinese nationals were taken into custody in California for visa violations and alleged people smuggling ties. Those operations feed into a dashboard powered by a $30 million contract with a private data firm, which boasts artificial intelligence algorithms that flag suspicious travel patterns. Armed with predictive analytics, agents can decide which bus stations or back rows to stake out next. This blending of human legwork and algorithmic insight makes the campaign feel like part action thriller, part tech demo. Beyond enforcement, the campaign sweetens integration for those who play by the rules. Immigrants who meet strict criteria are offered English courses, vocational training, and community service slots. By learning the language and learning a trade, participants stand a shot at legal residency if they haven't already cleaned up their cases. City councils in New York and San Francisco praise the programs, noting vibrant cultural festivals where Chinese artisans and American volunteers swap dumplings for hot dogs. The message: enter legally, contribute, and you might just earn permission to stay. Legal challenges have surfaced too. Federal courts in April 2025 demanded case-by-case reviews for Chinese nationals claiming asylum on political or economic grounds. In response, the administration rolled out an AI-driven rapid evaluation system to ensure each file aligns with the Administrative Procedure Act. Critics worry about handing life-altering decisions to computer code, but supporters insist the software slashes backlogs and cuts human error. Lawyers for immigrant rights groups grudgingly admit that streamlining red tape can't hurt, provided safeguards stay in place. Non-governmental outfits have joined in, offering free legal advice and Know Your Rights workshops in Mandarin neighborhoods. Volunteer lawyers coach migrants on hearing procedures and plausible asylum narratives. That grassroots push brings a pinch of empathy to a campaign otherwise heavy on enforcement. By educating communities, these NGOs reduce surprises and courtroom flare-ups. Continuing legal education sessions for judges include cultural competency modules so bench officers don't mistake fear of persecution for paperwork bungling. On the flip side, critics deride the campaign as an election year stunt. They point to flashy press conferences and photo ops with uniformed officers standing by steamrollers or border fences. Editorial cartoonists lampoon the spectacle, drawing deportation flights as flying broomsticks. Late-night comics crack wise about the administration's DIY deportation kit, which allegedly comes with a USB stick loaded with self-help exit forms. Satire abounds in social media memes that depict border agents as bouncers at an exclusive club. Sorry, no papers, no entry. Still, the policy yields tangible results. Illegal border crossings overall have bottomed out at levels not seen since early 2020. That drop frees resources to tackle smuggling rings and cyber fraud syndicates preying on visa holders. Budget hawks celebrate savings in emergency shelter programs previously inundated by surges. Some municipalities report fewer emergency room visits by uninsured newcomers, cutting public health bills. Proponents say those saved dollars can fund more tech upgrades or integration services. Economic impacts ripple through labor markets too. With stricter vetting, employers turn to legal workers to fill vacancies in construction, hospitality, and high-tech sectors. Farm owners in California's Central Valley no longer scramble for undocumented pickers. Instead, they rely on visa holders who undergo background checks and health screenings. Restaurant kitchens in Houston see fewer under-the-table hires, improving wage transparency. Certified translators estimate increased demand for legal document translation, spawning small businesses. Community relations experience strains and gains simultaneously. Fear runs high in immigrant enclaves, where nightly texts warn of ICE sweeps. That anxiety frays trust between residents and local law enforcement. Yet public forums hosted by city agencies bring police, DHS officials, and community leaders together for frank conversations. Attendees share coffee and criticize or commend policies. These dialogues foster a sense that even adversaries can sit at the same table. On the diplomatic front, Washington's approach includes promises of economic aid for rural Chinese provinces. The theory goes that boosting local incomes will stem migration flows at the source. Agricultural modernization projects backed by US grants aim to raise crop yields and raise wages. Chinese officials chafe at foreign involvement, but publicly accept joint ventures on poverty relief. Some skeptics dismiss the aid as window dressing, but project managers note modest gains in per capita income in pilot counties. Media coverage plays a starring role in shaping public opinion. Cable news anchors employ catchy slogans to describe deportation flights as Operation Dragon Return or Project Great Wall 2. Online news outlets churn out headlines warning of a Chinese migration crisis or celebrating the secure border renaissance. Social media influencers live-stream schmoozes with border agents, hyping behind-the-scenes access. Viewers see tearful send-offs at airports juxtaposed with stern officer briefings, creating a soap opera effect. Political opponents seize any misstep for soundbites. When a transport van overturned in Arizona, one senator declared the policy a reckless rush to remove, while another retorted that critics would rather see chaos than order. Congressional hearings brought emotional testimony from families estranged by deportations. The administration points to oversight committees as proof of checks and balances in action. Meanwhile, human stories emerge that defy easy labels. A former software engineer detained at the border speaks of leaving behind a startup dream to escape crushing debt. A farmer's daughter recounts watching her parents board a flight amid sobs, hoping for a chance to apply for work visas upon return. Volunteers in detention centers recount helping a grandmother knit scarves for newborn grandchildren she'll meet only through video calls. Those tales add depth to headlines that otherwise reduce migrants to statistics. Religious groups also weigh in, framing the campaign in moral terms. Some priests and rabbis decry mass removals as a betrayal of America's heritage as a sanctuary nation. They organize prayer vigils outside detention gates and pen open letters to policymakers. Chaplains inside hold services in Mandarin, offering comfort to those awaiting hearings. For them, the campaign becomes a test of national conscience. At the same time, a parallel narrative champions strict sovereign control. Nationalist pundits argue that laws are meaningless if not enforced, and that border integrity underpins economic stability. They cite other countries with stringent systems and wonder why the US should be any more lenient. Their commentary, plastered across opinion pages, fuels a perception that tough love is best love when it comes to illegal immigration. Technology firms pitch new tools to support enforcement and integration alike. One startup debuts biometric kiosks that scan fingerprints and facial features to accelerate processing at ports of entry. Another offers an app that matches eligible migrants with job vacancies and tracks skill development. Both promise seamless user experiences, though privacy advocates worry about mass data collection. With every new gadget, the campaign gains a techno-chic veneer. Amid these developments, local businesses feel the ripple effects. Restaurants that once relied on undocumented kitchen staff scramble to recruit legal workers. Language schools report surges in enrollment as migrants eye English classes. Real estate firms note a slight uptick in temporary housing rentals as migrant families wait on legal outcomes. Economy watchers map these shifts to predict future spending trends. Legal scholars dissect the campaign's compliance with international conventions. Arguments swirl over whether mass removals violate non-refoulement principles for asylum seekers. Courts mull the balance between national sovereignty and individual rights. Law journals publish case studies weighing precedent from earlier deportation waves. Academics debate whether AI-driven evaluations can satisfy due process or merely rubber-stamp outcomes. Through it all, the administration insists on a two-faced message: ironclad enforcement paired with pathways for deserving migrants. Their slogan, "No one-size-fits-all, but everyone gets a fair shake," echoes in speeches and press briefings. That duality aims to keep hardliners happy while softening optics for moderates. Whether it succeeds remains an open question. Looking ahead, analysts warn of potential bottlenecks. Courts might clog with appeals, detention centers could overflow, and diplomatic goodwill may fray if Beijing backtracks on acceptance. Seasonal migration patterns may defy predictions, and shifts in global unrest could send new waves. The campaign thus enters a fluid phase, requiring constant tweaks to policy and practice. Yet for now, the deportation drive stands as the administration's flagship immigration achievement. By mobilizing resources, forging diplomatic pacts, and leveraging technology, authorities have reshaped the landscape of Chinese migration to the United States. Whether this approach endures or buckles under legal and moral scrutiny will shape the next chapter in a saga that blends politics, technology, and human drama. This high-octane push to remove 40,000 undocumented migrants underscores the administration's pledge to reclaim control at the border. Tens of thousands more will watch, wait, or resist. Opinions will clash in barrooms and newsrooms. Satire and seriousness will collide in op-eds and late-night monologues. In the end, the campaign's legacy will hinge on its real-world impacts on lives, communities, and the national character. The deportation campaign's ripple effects are carving new fault lines in America's civic landscape. Community centers, once buzzing with cross-cultural exchange, now host tension-filled town halls where neighbors speak over one another. Yet traditions die hard, and church basements still echo with prayer circles that predate television. Amid heated debates, local elders remind everyone of how past waves of immigrants, Irish, Italian, Mexican, faced similar storms of suspicion. That historical echo offers a cautionary tale. Demonizing newcomers rarely leads to lasting unity. Behind the scenes, data scientists at DHS treat migration trends like a massive Python script, passing streams of information to predict where the next influx might land. They feed border-crossing numbers, visa overstay rates, and even climate data into machine learning models that spit out probability scores. It feels like watching an algorithm write history in real time. But every coder knows garbage in yields garbage out, and critics warn that flawed inputs, skewed arrest records, or incomplete asylum claims could skew policy in dangerous ways. Big data enthusiasts tout dashboards that chart migrant movements by the hour. One slick interface displays red dots migrating northward across the Rio Grande like digital fireflies. A hover reveals demographics, case statuses, and even health screening results. In theory, this aids resource planning. In practice, it raises privacy alarms. Civil libertarians grumble that corralling personal details into centralized hubs is a recipe for abuse, especially when the same data could be used for mass surveillance in darker regimes. Meanwhile, local businesses are learning to pivot. Language schools, once reliant on small cohorts of exchange students, now staff evening classes for adults seeking rapid translation of deportation notices. Bilingual tutors who once taught idioms now coach clients on legal jargon. Even Python programmers have carved out niches. They build apps to track court dates and send reminders in WeChat. This fusion of tech and tradition underscores a larger truth. When old systems crack, new innovations rush in to fill the gap. At the state level, governors are split. Some tout their sanctuary credentials, pledging to shield all residents regardless of status. They invoke founding-era ideals, reminding citizens that America built itself on waves of foreign hands. Others boast of cooperation with federal agents, arguing that law and order underpin economic growth. These dueling visions echo historical tussles between state and federal power, from whiskey rebellions to desegregation battles. On Capitol Hill, the debate has taken on a theatrical flair. Committee rooms transform into makeshift amphitheaters where witnesses recount heart-wrenching tales of families torn apart. One former head of ICE recalls how, in the 1990s, mass deportations targeted entire villages of Haitian boat people, yet few recall those headlines today. That historical parallel fuels skepticism among lawmakers wary of repeating past mistakes. Human rights organizations, ever vigilant, publish scathing reports. They compare current flights to Cold War-era airlifts, warning that sorting asylum seekers with AI is no substitute for human dignity. Their fact sheets brim with statistics on detention suicides and mental health crises. They argue that years of trauma can't be code-reviewed by algorithms trained on redacted files. In contrast, technocrats defend the approach as the 21st century solution. They highlight that manual case reviews in the 1970s took months per file, whereas the new system trims that to days. They dismiss emotional testimonies as anecdotal noise compared to gigabytes of tagged data points. Their rhetoric feels straight out of a Silicon Valley pitch deck: efficiency, scale, disruption. Judges are caught in the middle. They must balance due process with mounting case backlogs. Some lament that courtroom dockets resemble conveyor belts, with each asylum petition given mere minutes of attention. They question whether AI-driven recommendations undermine judicial discretion. Is a machine fit to judge a human's fate? One jurist mused, drawing nods from skeptical peers. Beyond courts, local schools feel the strain. Districts that once tailored English immersion programs for dozens of migrant children now scramble to support sudden inflows. Counselors juggle trauma-informed care with tech-driven attendance tracking. Cafeterias adapt menus to accommodate families from Hunan and Sichuan provinces. These small adaptations testify to schools' age-old role as social safety nets. Meanwhile, tech startups smell opportunity. One firm markets drone swarms to monitor remote stretches of borderland, touting real-time video feeds and heat-sensing cameras. Another sells blockchain-based identity tokens that promise tamper-proof traveler records. Investors pour millions into these ventures, hoping to cash in on the enforcement boom. The risk, critics say, is that profit motives could override humanitarian concerns. Faith-based charities too have stepped up. Buddhist temples in California opened their doors for nightly meditation sessions, offering solace to those stuck in limbo. Rabbis host kosher potlucks for families awaiting court dates. These acts of age-old compassion underscore a truth. No matter how advanced the surveillance tech, the human heart remains the ultimate sanctuary. At the same time, conspiracy theories have blossomed on fringe forums. Some claim that deportation flights are fronts for secret operations, ferrying dissidents to black sites. Others allege data-sharing deals between DHS and foreign governments will expose Chinese Americans whose families fled political persecution. Most claims fall apart under scrutiny, but they sow distrust in communities already on edge. Americans with roots in prior migration waves chime in too. Descendants of Irish potato famine survivors point out that past generations endured hostile laws only to become pillars of society. They caution against repeating history's mistakes. Anecdotes of their ancestors' hardships serve as living reminders that today's scapegoats could be tomorrow's citizens. Economists weigh in with sober forecasts. They calculate that removing 40,000 workers could shave off fractions of a percent from GDP growth, especially in sectors with tight labor markets. Over years, they project measurable dips in agricultural output, restaurant revenues, and tech sector productivity. Those dry numbers belie individual losses: farmers unable to harvest crops, families skipping meals, startups missing deadlines. Even the trucking industry feels tremors. Some haulers relied on drivers who hailed from Guangdong provinces but lacked proper papers. With deportations underway, logistics firms scramble for vetted drivers, pushing up freight rates. Consumers might not notice at first, but long-term, higher shipping costs mean pricier groceries and electronics. The story of these 40,000 migrants is far from over. Policies will shift with elections, courts will issue new rulings, and technology will evolve. But one lesson stands timeless. When law, compassion, and innovation collide, the outcome hinges on our willingness to question, adapt, and honor the past while charting a better future.